It's not QAnon. QAnon would be like, what are you talking about? You're an idiot. I don't think Joe is that. I don't think Joe's a person at all anymore. What that means, I have no idea. But I know that once you get to a certain age, you're still your personality, aren't you? And that's not the case with these people. They don't have the same personality that they used to have. And I think that goes, honestly, let's get real. Real talk, bro. Real talk. Let's talk about these late night hosts. I don't think they are the real, normal people that they were. I'm just saying, it's odd. And Dave Chappelle is one I'm still questioning about. But he could still be Dave, I'm sure. Maybe. And then we talk about like sports stars, like the NBA guy, like LeBron James. I don't know if that's still LeBron James. It might be. Maybe. So those are two examples of personalities that I see like, okay, maybe not. Okay, now let's get to all of the late night fucking comedians, right? Come on, let's take a look. And I just don't think that he's the one defense against that I can come up with is that he's just kind of stupid because he doesn't know any better. Okay, this guy for sure, that's not Jimmy Kimmel. Absolutely not. If that's Jimmy Kimmel, then he took like a cocktail of acid or something. Because that's not the Jimmy Kimmel we all know. Fuck no. This is one of those things. You know what I'm saying? Let's go back. Okay, this guy for sure is not the guy we knew when Colbert Report was out. And I think this is a photo from Colbert Report. Let's find a newer photo of him. This guy is, it's funny how Obama's party was composed of all the celebrities that we see in all those crazy pictures of child fuckers. I don't know. Might not be. Just saying. It's kind of crazy. It's a little bit crazy. I'm just saying, isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Every single guest to Barack Obama's party was an alleged. How that happens, you know what I'm saying? So there's a reason why this guy is still normal. He got out. There's a reason why this guy is still a little bit normal. I love Jon Stewart, man. Even though he pissed on Anthony Cumia, I still like the guy. I've not heard him say anything that I think is completely batshit. Like, I've been brainwashed. This guy, on the other hand, how old is this photo? He looks like an 8-year-old here compared to what he looks like now. Right? What happens to people when they join that club? What happens to them? Hey, what happened? These three people, all three of them, these look like human beings here. Wait till you see them now. Let me put a year on this search, I guess. Jesus Christ. This is the photo of the 4 who lost their souls. I mean, fuck. This guy lost his cranium structure that he used to have. And he has zero humor. Same with this guy. These guys lost their humor. What does it take to lose a sense of humor? I thought you're like kind of born with a sense of humor, and then you develop it and it gets better and better and better and better. You can't really lose it. A lot of old guys, that's the thing about comedy, is the one thing that separates it from like musicians. I don't know, some musicians where this doesn't apply, but a lot of musicians or like artists. The older you get, at some point you're unable to come up with great like breakthroughs, like new ideas. With comedy, you're able to do that. But you have to be a real person to be able to do that. And these four guys, what's the last funny thing that any of these four guys did? Because I think humor takes soul. You need a soul in order to connect with something beyond yourself, within the zeitgeist of human consciousness. Find elements and things that are a little bit off, a little bit different, and turn them into humor. Same with music. Same with any art. Same with film. Same with writing. Same with literature. You have to have that connection to something beyond you. And when you lose that connection, you lose that skill. And what I'm talking about now is something much, much deeper than just haha funniness. And there's a struggle going on. And I see it. You could see it in a lot of these people. It's a struggle. And I saw it. And I saw it just wither away. But you know what? They held on to those big money gigs. These guys are supposedly the top comedians in entertainment. But all of them lost any ability to bring funny. And I think that's because these days, because, Johnny Carson was able to bring funny. What happened? I don't know, man. I think the same thing kind of happened to Jay Leno, too. But Jay Leno's, I still feel like he has a soul. I feel like he does. But his level of humor before being granted that late night show, and then having that late night, he lost. I mean, he wasn't very funny. Maybe he had to shift his focus onto different things, because he knew that had he pushed what was really funny, it would be against those who were providing his job, his money. So he kind of made it work for himself in order to provide for his family and extend his life and make it more comfortable. But these guys, I can't imagine any one of these guys making me laugh. Post 2019, 2018, 2017. They haven't been funny at all. They signed over something. And it's weird when I hear like Mike Lindell talking about Jimmy Kimmel and talking about how Jimmy Kimmel allegedly actually read his book, and how Jimmy Kimmel allegedly was telling Mike Lindell that he like commiserated with him based on the fact that Mike Lindell got canceled, but it was different from Jimmy Kimmel getting canceled, because Jimmy Kimmel got canceled for doing blackface years ago. I don't know who the fuck gives a shit about that. Do any black people really give a shit about that? I don't think so. Anyway, Jimmy Kimmel, who's now married to the left, believes that he was wrong in doing that. And he said the difference was I was wrong with my cancellation. Mike Lindell, you were just fighting for what you believed in. So I'm not sure if it's like a soul thing or if it's what is making these comedians take these lifetime gigs and then they lose all like human comedic expression. And I think maybe a good example of that would be Larry Sanders. Now, this was possibly the greatest show. I don't know. I put The Office, Ricky Gervais, The Office, Steve Merchant, and Larry Sanders show, Gary Shandling. I put those two at the top consistently. But the funny thing is, like Larry Sanders Show, what Gary Shandling was doing with this show was illustrating, if I had taken this position to be a late night talk show host, how it would go. Right? Because he was offered that, he didn't take it. Gary Shandling was like really big in the late night circuit, and then he was offered many sort of guest hosting gigs, and then he was offered an actual gig, and he turned it down, and he turned it down in order to do this, a show where he portrayed a late night show host. And you can see in this how the life of a late night show host can kind of suck the humanity out of a person. Let's take a look at a trailer here.
Gary Shandling stars as talk show host Larry Sanders in the award-winning comedy that's not afraid to show us what really goes on behind the late-night curtain.
Take the award. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're insane.
A veteran of numerous talk shows himself, Gary sat down and tried to recall his original inspiration for the show.
One day I was there at the Tonight Show, and I thought, here's a show. No, that isn't how I came up with it.
Jeffrey Tambor plays Larry's faithful and well-meaning sidekick, Hank Kingsley. And he's got some ideas of his own about the appeal of the Larry Sanders Show.
It answers the question, I mean, what is David Letterman actually saying when he puts his hand up and the guest is coming on?
Just pretend like you're talking to me until we're off the air so it won't seem weird.
Okay.
But co-star Rip Torn, who plays Larry's producer and best friend Artie, believes the show's appeal is much more universal.
It's,
Like I said, this is one of the greatest shows of all time. Either one or two, in my mind. It's an amazing show. Search it out, please. I don't know how it just went under the radar. I guess it won awards and stuff. Maybe it didn't go under the radar. I don't know. I was kind of alive and well. And I never heard. I kind of had to dig it out.
The story of every workplace, everybody tells me something just like this happened in my office.
That's my beeper. I don't think she's quite got the hang of this.
And guess what Gary Shandling enjoys most about working behind the scenes on a show that goes behind the scenes?
I enjoy the writing, but it is also the most challenging because to do a weekly series is really very, very difficult to come up with the scripts every week.
I think we could use this on the show and just have a lot of fun with it.
I think we could.
Really?
No.
If it's anything like what I've heard, I'm going to be very entertained.
I don't know. I don't know what my point was really. I think it was just talking about humanity and the way that a role that puts you in front of a bunch of people can kind of skew your view and affect your ability to reach through to that source of creativity. But I don't know, man. Like it's those are one-offs. But when we see every single late night host that exists right now on television, like every one of them, something weird's going on there. Like, how is that? Besides the fact there's no outlet that allows you to talk about what really matters. I mean, let's talk about what really matters and what really matters. It starts with an E. You know? It ends with a S. And it kind of sounds like a selection. Pintegrity? Skintegrity? Splitsecondegrity? Split action and integrity. I don't think you can get around it. You know what the fucking crazy thing is? That's exactly why comedy works. Because comedy is supposed to address those elements of our culture that are extremely on fire within the consciousness of humanity. So I can't put it in any other way. Why the hell would comedy suck right now? At least within the confines of either platform, which completely censors anyone who discusses those things which are the bedrock of comedy. Because comedy is meant to stoke the fires of the human consciousness. And what is on fire right now in human consciousness? And all human consciousness, not just Americans. Every free human being on the planet has one thing on fire in their brain. And big tech has worked to stoke those fires, or to suppress those comedians whose only wish is to stoke those fires and get those fires removed. I mean, that's how it works. If race is a big deal in the consciousness of humanity, you know what the best comedians do? And the best artists do? They stoke that. They say, hey, they make jokes about it. They create narratives about it that serve to make fun of people on either side of it. And it's a catharsis. And that fire dwindles. Humor and storytelling and music serve that purpose. And when you suppress those, well, that fire just builds, doesn't it? Can you imagine if big tech was also suppressing anything talked about concerning race? Anything talked about concerning LGBTQ? CRT? But they can't. Because, you know why? Because people of different races can make jokes and they can't suppress them because they would be racist. People of different sexual orientations can make jokes and they can't suppress them because they would be racist. But if you talk about it starts with an E and it rhymes with the shun. And the second word starts with, let's say, I. And it ends with a regularities. These nuts. You can't talk about it. So what are you doing, big tech? You think you're making things better for you? Or do you think you're keeping that fire building in the brains of comedians, artists, musicians, writers? Come on. It all comes down to that. It all comes down to that. And then it also comes down to something that starts with C. And it ends with, like, if I said, oh, that vid, yo. See? Oh, that video. You can't talk about that. Do you not think that that's 100% what people want to talk about? Do you not think that that's a fire in the conscience of American psychology right now? I mean, the world. Not even just American psychology. That's in consciousness of humanity right now. It's a big fire. And you know, humor, when people are free, humor is a huge just wall of extinguishing power on that. Truth and humor team up to demolish that crazy source of psychic allergy, of psychic psychosis. Because now we all just have that fucking brewing in our brains, and we can't get it cleaned up by humor or music or art or writing. Nobody can talk about it. We have to go to like deep web fucking sources to find people who talk about it. And that helps alleviate a little bit of our frustration and a little bit of our fucking, what's the word? The cognitive dissonance that we have. Just accepting that shit when we know otherwise on all fronts. And we're not allowed to be, I guess, pacified with humor and comedy and art and just creative storytelling that allows us to realize we're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. And when big tech suppresses all that, dude, no wonder. What do you think you're accomplishing by doing that? You know what you're doing. So a world where artistic, creative endeavor is 100% cheered on. And then you invent this idea that there's this suppression of thought over two things. You can't talk about drinking, and you can't talk about right? You can't talk about and you can't talk about but then you watch the news and 100% all they talk about is and you don't think that's going to create some sort of extreme universal cognitive dissonance that makes the people want to rise up? You wonder why there's so many people in so many countries just pouring onto the streets, traveling hundreds and hundreds of miles to join crowds of people to resist the You got to get to the bottom of those two things, man. Because otherwise, we ain't human anymore, man. And you know why? That creates extreme blockages in the universal consciousness, right? When the universal consciousness is not allowed to explore, to investigate or explore or even talk about those two things, which are the most flared up parts of our brain, pretty much. Like, I don't care about anything else. I should be. I got a lot of other things going on in my life. I don't care about anything else right now. It's those two things. It's the how can I? And it's the swollen erection, you know, that happened in I think it was like November. Three blind mice. Okay, you get what I'm saying? Okay, and a slightly distant third is what actually happened on Hey Jan, you worry at all? I was worried about the sixth time that you went to buy those tickets for the Mets. Yeah. You were saying like you thought like, oh, maybe like the your boyfriend FB might be eyeing some other girl, and might have had something to do with the Hey Jan, you weary? I'm sure I thought you might be weary because I know you were worried about the sixth pair of galoshes that you bought, and you were worried about whether or not your boyfriend FB might be eyeing your friend, and you thought you saw him looking her Antifa been down, and you're worried about like possible like your other friend SB was like nodding at him. Good night, guys.